From Wall Street to Main Street, this is LALATE.
It's a big morning of mornings LA, early mornings LA, direct from Santa Monica with your fourth stimulus check update of 2021 today. In this big recording, we go over a deal. Will the deal be reached today? And could it be set for a vote later this week? I have the latest update. Then, Americans don't know what's in the recon, and broadcast media butchered it yesterday, telling Americans a recon deal had been reached. What went wrong? I have the latest update. The Price is Right, 1.7 to 2 trillion. But why is 2 trillion a better number and would give you 2 more programs? Then, programs in, programs out. Climate and college back in, and a lot of programs that were removed just days ago got added back in. I have incredible details in this recording. Then we look over to student loan debt forgiveness. More debt could be forgiven, and then COLA going up, and this stimulus is right behind that. And then we look over to the 1-year anniversary, what we've learned as a family and what we've learned as a community. So much across the board, and we're still learning. I look back over the last year and a half and show us what we've learned as a community going forward. It's a big early mornings broadcast because the toast is toasting, the butter is buttering, and the coffee is brewing. I have the latest details on the incredible 12 to 20 programs. In, out, numbers, details. You haven't seen any details like this on an early mornings broadcast in several days. It's all incredibly detailed by the number of years, the number of the programs, who's getting paid, when are you getting paid. It's all in this recording. The toast is toasting, the butter is buttering, but the bacon is still missing. And this is Early Mornings LALATE. It was very cold and damp here yesterday in Southern California as the rain came on down. But a deal could be happening. When would the vote be, and what type of deal do we need? I'll have the latest details. Then, a new poll reveals Americans don't know what's in that recon. And yesterday, Americans saw very bad reporting from broadcast media. I'll have the rundown what happened. The Price is Right. Why is 2 trillion better than 1.7? Because 2 more programs could get in there. All the latest calculations. Programs in, programs out. Big updates. Several programs removed over the weekend, back in today. Student loan debt, more debt could be forgiven. All the latest detail on that as well. And then we go over the incredible details as more money could be coming. And that money is the incredible details of this stimulus. And as we look over the last year and a half of this channel, what have we learned as a community? So much across the board. We'll look over what's going on next as we go forward in life and what we see coming up next. It's a big, bold, beautiful morning, and the excitement starts right here. And this, my friends, is Early Mornings LALATE. So subscribe. 400,000 subscribers, a YouTube record. I want you part of this incredible family. Hit that subscribe button right now. Like the video, 2,000-3,000 likes, and consider becoming a member. Right before this was Overnights LALATE at 3 and 3:30 a.m. If you missed those shows, all about forced stimulus. Then coming up at 7 a.m. is Mornings Countdown. Big show. And then live on air at 9 a.m. with the latest details about the negotiations. So subscribe, like the video, and consider becoming a member. Let's go right into this recon. This recon is really big and it's still staying big despite all the negotiations. It's going to pay viewers on this channel about $15,000. Yes, $15,000. Single, married, with children, without children, elder, young, with on disabilities, not on disabilities, red states, blue states, nationwide. There's a lot of money in this recon, and it's about $15,000. It was initially a $3.5 trillion recon. It's not going to say $3.5 trillion. It was with 3 clusters of checks. Let's go over each of these clusters and the 3 add-ons, and let's see the status of them today. Here we go. Well, hazard pay and $4,000 of elder care. We haven't been given an update about hazard pay. That would be brought in the earned income tax credit and increasing the amount of money for those essential workers. And no update yet about the $4,000 for elder care for elders and $4,000 for young children's care. The money for free repairs for homes in low-income communities, that's likely in there because the housing money survived. Coming up later, I'll explain those details. Then, the money for the college students definitely survived. We got an update about that. Pell's Grant survived. That's the Pell's Grant made tax-free. College grants to the college student and also the university survived as well. We know that the child tax credit reduced dramatically. It'll be 1 year, $3,600 or $3,000 for a child in a low-income community. And finally, the money for the bikes, cars, and trucks appears to have survived. 15% for the purchase price of a new electric bike, $7,500 for the purchase price of a new electric vehicle, a little bit more if it's for business use, and then also for a truck. That is the first cluster of checks. Now, the first add-on has some great news about that. Normally, the first add-on, when we refer to it, we refer to the $25,000 for those first-time home buyers. I don't think the number 25,000 has survived, but the housing number has survived. And this might be part of it. You know, there's two parts of housing we cover in this channel. The weatherize your home coming up a second, and the housing I just did. We also know that the housing also includes mortgage assistance, rent. Well, housing was out. Housing was out on Thursday, got back in on Friday. Maxine Waters pushed to get it back in. It was originally $300 billion. They took it out. She said, put it back in. They came back in at $100 billion. Then it went to $150 on the weekend. Now it's at $175. So great news. It's back in. Let's go to the second cluster of checks. And this is where a lot were out, and they are back in as well. Let's go over what they were, and then I'll give you the update of what their status is. Family leave, medical leave. They got household tax credits. They got money for pre-kindergarten, tuition-free community college, and money to weatherize your home. So just as I said a second ago, weatherize your home, weatherize the negotiations. It was weatherized, that provision, so it survived the negotiations. It looks like, because the home money got in there. The paid leave and family leave, it was out by the weekend. This is Nancy Pelosi's provision. She fought to get it in there. It got in there, but reduced coming up later in this video. And then the tuition-free community college, it was out on Wednesday. President said it was out. Jalapal said it was out. It got back in there, it's believed. More about that coming up later in this video. The second add-on, really surprising. I thought this was really doomed for one big reason. It's very expensive. $250 billion, and it's for that home health care. For seniors and people on disabilities, free home health care. $250 billion, it's a difficult number. Things in the recon surviving that are really just right below $250. So the great news, it survived. They got it in there. It won't be $250, but it won't be really low either. So they got it in there. This is one of the president's campaign promises, and it was Bob Casey's baby. He wanted a $250. So the third cluster, really fascinating one about this one. I'm going to go over each of them. I'm going to go one at a time and tell you what their status is, because there is so many items in this third cluster, and you know this is the cluster mess. So here we go. Free school meals for all, checks, likely still in there. Cheaper prescription medication, it's survived, but it's going to be totally different. Then money for farmers, no update about that. Free internet, no update about that. Then clean energy, you know that's out. That's the anti-Joe Manchin provision is out. Workers' money, no update about that. And then Medicare expansion, dental, vision, hearing, and lowering the eligibility age for seniors. That was on the chopping block on the weekend. It survived. It's survived, but it's very, very complicated. And I'll explain it later in this video. All those provisions, the dental versus the hearing versus the lowering the eligibility age, survived. MSC, the IRS monthly stimulus check, the third add-on. Well, we're seeing why the situation is so fluid. Yesterday, Ron Wyden, the senator from the Democrat caucus, introduced his own legislation yesterday about taxes. Why? Because senators can do what they want. Yesterday, Nancy Pelosi said, if you have another provision you want to add in there, tell me on the Senate side. Well, that's the situation, that people are adding things across the board. Nancy Pelosi appeared on broadcast media and said, I'm waiting for these other alternatives to be presented. And what's important to understand is that there's room for that monthly stimulus check still in there. And there's a lot of opportunities. We have Omar reportedly talking about stimulus checks in a recent press conference, but her staff has been telling viewers across the board in the last few days. And of course, Chuck Schumer. It's important to understand how this recon is currently being negotiated. It's 4 people. It's only 4 people. The president, Joe Biden, Joe Manchin, Chuck Schumer, and Nancy Pelosi. That's it. Sporadically, Bernie Sanders. Sporadically, Jalopal, and that is it. Liz Warren, she's very opinionated. She has an opinion. Is she part of the negotiations? No. Will she add something? Absolutely. Omar, AOC, you think they're opinionated? Of course they are. They're going to add something? Of course they will. They've had no input on the subject matter. And so that is why it's important to push, important to advocate before we have a recon bill, after we have a recon bill, but before we have a vote, because that's where the House members represent. They're going to introduce it by amendment before they have the House vote, and before we have a Senate vote-a-rama, and while we're having a Senate vote-a-rama. The final two steps are very important. Now let's go to that incredible comment by the Chief of Staff of the #1 legislator for the process. The Chief of Staff says advocate because we have a big step ahead of us, several steps. They now have been told between congressional senatorial offices to receive more context of advocacy from LALATE than the American petition. Wow. Everyone's amazed by the outpouring of touching stories. Now they have a better understanding of what Americans are trying to do to get through this pandemic. They have heartbreaking stories from the LA viewers, and they have the voice of the people across the nation in you, LA, as you have become too loud to be ignored. Very, very kind. Let's read the last sentence on air. That last sentence on air says the following. Please continue your encouragement for the continued advocacy as the professional voice for the people. You have become LA, and push until this becomes a law. Very, very kind. Basically saying advocate until we're over the finish line. Absolutely. With Nancy asking the senators yesterday, what do you want to add in there? Did you call those senators? Did you call Chris Coons, Bob Casey, Liz Warren, Chuck Schumer, Bernie Sanders, Ron Wyden? Got to call them because the advocacy is far from over. You're going to see later in this recording how provisions that were in there were removed. Provisions that were dead on arrival survived and got back in there. Provisions that were very small got large. Provisions that were very large got reduced. It's a battleground, and you need to battle as well. Advocate across the board. In the second half of this video, we have a lot coming up. We're going to have the latest rundown on 12 to 20 programs. I'm going to show you how long they're running, how much they're paying, who's getting the money, how it works, a lot of details. We'll be looking over why yesterday broadcast media got the reporting of this so incorrectly. We'll be looking over 1.7 to 2 trillion, a big difference and what does it mean for you. Now we see a little bit of difference in those prices. And then we'll be looking at the program surviving. Yeah. In the case of climate and college, that survived. Over the weekend, we were worried that seniors' money would be in jeopardy. It survived. I have the latest rundown. We'll be looking at student loan debt forgiveness, and we'll be looking at the raise of your benefits on the fifth stimulus, and then we'll be looking back over the last year and a half of this channel and what it means going forward. We got a big recording coming up in the second half of this video. Stay with me. It's a delicious early morning's broadcast. We're just getting started. But first, here's a little bit about the community page. I'll be back with you in 60 seconds. If you want money right now, not 5 days from now, and not 5 weeks from now, then reach out to the community page. The volunteers can help you find that money for rent and utilities. That's at news.la.com/community. The community page features a series of volunteers who are viewers like you. They can help you find rent, utilities, SNAP, food benefits, mortgage assistance, and help you with eviction moratorium questions as well. Their Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram individuals reach out to them and indicate the city and state you're from, and they'll get back to you shortly. That's a community page. Volunteers working for you, viewers helping one another. Stay with LA for more. Join LALATE Daily for the excitement of the new LALATE live daily. The excitement starts on mornings LALATE at 9 a.m. Home LALATE returns at 11 a.m. daily. And then afternoons LALATE at 1 p.m. Join us daily as the excitement continues live from Santa Monica on LALATE. And the excitement continues on this early morning's broadcast as a deal could be happening. But now Joe Manchin and the Progressives agree upon something totally new. I'll explain what's happening. The price is right. Why is 1.7 not as good as 2 trillion? I'll explain what it means for the programs. Programs in, programs out. Which one's removed and which one's added in? I have the latest details. Student loan debt, more debt could be forgiven. Whose debt would be forgiven next? And then we go to the incredible cola raise. Which cola is getting raised? Not Pepsi Cola, your cola. And then we look over the 1.5 year anniversary of this channel, what we have learned as a community and what we're looking for now. I think that bird is looking for some bacon. Bacon. Can you find some bacon in the ocean? No, there's no bacon in the ocean, bird. There's no bacon here either. So, you know, we are one and the same. The bird and I are both looking for the bacon. And this is Early Mornings LA. So subscribe. 400,000 subscribers, a YouTube record, and 140 million views in a year and a half. I want you part of this incredible family. Hit that subscribe button right now. Like the video, 2,000-3,000 likes. And consider becoming a member to get that newsletter tonight at 7 o'clock. The President of the United States met with the Democrats last week. He met with Joe Manchin on Sunday in Delaware. And then, shortly after the president met with Joe Manchin, what happened? Well, the broadcast media on Monday morning said that Joe Manchin, the president, reached an agreement. $1.7 trillion. Done. Only problem is it never happened. It never happened. What's going on? Why is Americans so unclear about this recon? 90% of Americans don't even know this recon exists, and the remaining 10% can't tell you what's in there. You think it's because of broadcast media, because they can't even tell you what really happened? Well, a deal will be happening, but it won't be happening yesterday. Now, what did we learn midday yesterday from Joe Manchin? Really good comments from Joe Manchin, who said basically the following, that I want to see the agreement in writing before I agree to it. So don't say there's an agreement until I see it in writing, and I will say, yeah, absolutely. Who also says the same thing? The progressives. So for the first time, Joe Manchin and the progressives are completely on the same table, which says, we're not going to say we have an agreement on the recon until we see the writing. Show me the writing. What's at issue? Progressives being floated around like a 20-page deal memo, and they're not flying with it. Remember, the deal was to present the substantive agreement over the weekend, last weekend, framework, summary, whatever you want to call the words, then get it finalized for a vote this week with a bill format. They don't have either. They're working on a chicken scratch, 20 pages here and there, and they're not feeling it, Joe Manchin and the progressives. So this is big news because guess what? Joe Manchin says don't call the vote on the roads and bridges and don't call a vote on the recon yet because people are still talking over the provisions. Who do I think will? This has not happened yet, but I predict it to happen. Josh Gothenheimer, the Democratic member from New Jersey. I believe he's going to say by the end of the week, call the infrastructure for a vote again. And the progressives say, no, we haven't even got to an agreement on the roads and bridge, on the recon. Joe Manchin says, I need to see it. And why is this important? Here's an example. Joe Manchin yesterday said, for example, he wants to expand Medicaid. Medicaid is absolutely wonderful. He wants to expand it, and he agrees with the progressives. Let's expand it. But he sees a problem with the language. He needs to see the language. Why? The current landscape of Medicaid is if you expand it, then it would be in all the states, and all the states would offer it to all the citizens. The only problem is only the Democratic states would pay for it. And so the Republican states would get it for free, and the Democrat states would be paying for the Republican states. Joe Manchin doesn't think it's fair that the residents of the state of West Virginia are paying for Republican states that don't want to pay for it. So he says, I need to see the language. And guess what? The progressives agree. The president asked whether the recon will get done this week. And he says, with the grace of God and the goodwill of the people, goodwill of the neighbor. Mr. Neighbor, can you rush it? And then the president said it would be very positive to get it done before his trip. It would be very positive to get it done before his trip. God, that is much of nothing of a quote. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't. It would be really good if it was, free ice cream today. Especially it's $12, but it's not happening. Nancy Pelosi explaining that it's very important to get these things into writing. And Joe Manchin saying, I approve taxes. Why is this very important? What did we learn yesterday? That the president's time has not been self-explanatory. The president met with Joe Manchin in Delaware on Sunday to negotiate the recon and came out and say, hey, Joe Manchin likes corporate taxes and likes taxing the wealthy. One of my big parts of my recon, the revenue side. Joe Manchin always said that. You just modify sort of the numbers. Joe Manchin always liked that. He always was in support of it. The president on Friday, last Friday, said Kristen Sinema doesn't want those provisions, so I'm exploring now the other pay-fors like closing tax loopholes, international corporate taxes, because I can't get her on board ever on corporate taxes or wealth people. So why is the president spending time on something Sinema doesn't do to say Joe Manchin likes it? I could be very skeptical of the situation, which would be the president's just sort of window dressing a situation he hasn't solved with Sinema. But what I got to say is that Joe Manchin's on board with it, so don't look like it's a big win when he already was on board with it. So let's go over let's go over what happened yesterday, which was broadcast media immediately told American people that a recon agreement had been reached in Delaware between Joe Manchin and Joe Biden, $1.7 trillion. Only problem is it never happened. It never happened. I saw it and I said, what? Did I miss this? And I got to tell you, it wasn't some, I almost said the publication. It wasn't that publication, the publication that used to review keyboards and laptops and now suddenly it's covering stimulus. It wasn't that publication. It was the number one broadcast channel in the country that sent that news feed out to all their affiliates. It was all wrong. Price is right, 1.7 to 2 trillion. We're now learning 2 trillion is a lot better than 1.7. Why? The provisions that are surviving at 200 billion, 250 billion, 150 billion, 100 billion, or less. They're not going over 250 billion. Provisions that are 300, 400, 500 are getting removed or getting reduced. So 1.7 to 2 trillion, what's the difference? 2 packages, 2 programs. It's a difference of 2 programs. 1.7 to 2 trillion is $300 billion. It's the difference of adding 2 other programs. Joe Manchin on Monday saying, I want 1.5. He's not getting 1.5. He's already said he'll do 1.7. But the progressives, including Joe Manchin, said he'll go to 1.9. President's staying at 2 trillion. I think it will come in at 2 trillion. But 1.92 is fine. 1.7 is a whole different ball of wax because 2 programs are removed. And which programs are removed, which ones are in? Here's the big lineup. And it starts right now. I'm going to give you incredible detail. First in this first group, and then I'll come back to the second group in a second. Child tax credit survived. They wanted initially 15 years of child tax credits for families that even made $110,000, or single parents who made $110,000, a lot more than the current law. Did not survive. So it's going to be 1 year. Individuals or married couple who make $60,000 or less, $3,600 or $3,000 for a child. Then free community college. President on Wednesday said it was out. Jalapal said on Wednesday is out. Pelosi on Thursday and Friday said it was in. It looks like it's surviving. It's either 0 or 2 years. The college money, definitely staying in there. The Pell's grant, tax-free, definitely staying there. Jalapal said it. She was right, staying in there. Medicare expansion, staying in there, but you always saw the issue about the language. Dental, vision, and hearing, they wanted it in there at 10 years, $350 billion, not surviving. But it is surviving at a different price point. Coming up in a second, I'll explain the details. The Medicare drop from 65 to a lower number looks like it's happening. Where is it? Don't know at the moment. Casey wants it at 60. Bernie wants it at age 55. Then Pelosi says dental is very expensive. It is. I'm going to explain it in a second. Paid leave survived. It was on the chopping block. There's the Nancy Pelosi provision. She wanted it 12 weeks for individuals who are self-employed. 12 weeks for everyone. No matter what type of job you have, no matter what your income level is, even for self-employed, even for gig workers. Sounds like hazard pay from 2020? It does. She wanted to really get money for a lot of people for 12 weeks. She fought for it. They wouldn't give it to her. So now they're giving her 4 weeks only for low-income employees. So no longer gig and self-employed, which is what she was fighting for. She couldn't get it. They're doing just employees, and they're only doing low-income. Price tag $100 billion. That's our hope. We're fighting for it. She literally says we're fighting for it. I don't think it's fair. I think it should be also for self-employed and gig workers. And I don't think it's fair if it's just low-income workers. They should have done maybe 3 weeks and have it for more people rather than doing 4 weeks for less people. Corporate taxes and rich person taxes, $600 billion. Joe Manchin's on board for it. He was always on board for it. I've been covering this since April. He's always been on board for it. Just modify the number, he's on board for it. So the president said he's on board for it. Yeah, we already knew that. The problem is Kristen Sinema is not. And this is why they're proposing other alternatives for Sinema, but we have had no briefing from the White House where these alternatives raise the $600 billion of revenue need for this recon. Wyden, who is the top person for taxes, Senator, Democrat, introduced legislation yesterday, or introduced a proposal yesterday, that would be part of the Votorama, that said if you have $1 billion in the bank, or excuse me, $1 billion in net wealth, and you make $100 million for 3 consecutive years, you have to pay taxes on your assets that you hold, even if you don't sell them. Wow. Prescription medication, it was literally on the chopping block. Kristen Sinema said she wanted it out. It's not removed. So where's it going? It's going to be approved for the prescriptions that are authorized under Medicare Part B. So the medications that are authorized under Medicare Part B will get the lower prescription medication price. Childcare survived. It's going to be lower, less years, cheaper. Clean energy, of course, out. Health insurance survived. Less money, shorter program. Housing aid, great news for this one, survived. This is what we talked about earlier in this video. It was supposed to be $300 billion. It was approved at $300 billion. Then it got to 0. Then it got to 150. Then it went to 100. Then it went to 150. Now it's at 175. And the in-home care, the Bob Casey item I detailed earlier in this video, it was in there at 400. Then it was out. Then it looks like it's coming in 100 to 200 across the board. Wow. What is important is that Kristen Sinema is a problem. She still remains a problem. Why? Because you don't know if she is a problem or isn't a problem. Who talks about this? Everyone. Every single day, another senator, House member says, what's the problem with Kristen Sinema? It's like the same quote I'm reading every single day. They're all having a problem with her. Why? Because she doesn't tell people what she doesn't like, which is a problem because you're going to call a vote and you don't know if she's going to vote in favor or against. And that's what Ro Khanna said on Chris Wallace, Fox News Sunday. Senator Manchin is a straight shooter. He tells you exactly what he doesn't like. Hey, I disagree with him in areas, but I respect that. Meaning, if he doesn't like it, he's going to tell you he doesn't like it. He's going to vote against it, and then they figure out a solution, and they got the solution. But Sinema, it's secret Sinema. My concern with Senator Sinema is why are all the rules different for her? Why does she go on? Why does she go on shows like yours and tell us what she wants and explain herself? She doesn't. Pelosi said on Sunday that the Senate should now start outlining other financial proposals. That is your add-ons. So that's why you have to advocate. And Pelosi explains that dental is very expensive and it takes a while to implement. We've been told by people who know about these things that it takes 5 to 6 years in order to implement the dental. So how do we fill in the blanks there? I'll come to the dental right now. So now we're going to go into the incredible details about this dental, hearing, and vision. It's very, very complicated. So vision, hearing, and dental, the senior's aid. Of those 3 items, the dental is the most expensive. You just heard it from Pelosi. The second problem is that if it became law today with dental in there, it couldn't roll out. It couldn't be implemented for 5 to 6 years thereafter, which doesn't make a lot of sense. You're not seeing the benefit of the program. So that's why they have proposed vouchers of $800 a year for individuals for dental. I don't like $800. It's not enough money. Dental, $800 for a senior, that's barely even a half of a procedure. It doesn't pay for anything. So I think they have a real big problem with this situation. One of the solutions they said is just doing it for 3 years. I think maybe they got to do it for 2 years and do bigger payouts. Bernie and Omar said they're definitely staying in there. They are. Paid leave. It was out over the weekend. And you heard the quote on this channel where the advocates are saying that it was shocking that was removed. This is a White House provision. It's unconscionable and conceivable that there's an actual risk for paid leave. It's staying in there. Now, I love this quote from the press secretary. And boy, I'm going to use this quote as often as I can. Why? Because it embodies where we are. The press secretary says these programs have never existed before in our society. This is big because if you look at this recon, you have never seen these programs before. It's very easy to call fourth stimulus recon and think the fourth is the same as the first and second, third. It's not. These are brand new programs. These are totally different than third stimulus under the same presidency. They're brand new programs you've never seen. So you have to embellish them and embrace them because they're going to pay you a lot of money and they're not going to be around forever. 1, 2, 3 years and bam, gone. You got to get as much money as you can as soon as they become law. I'm going to show you as soon as they become law. We now know that House Ways and Means Committee Chair Richard Neal, who I called out over the weekend as giving a false quote, was incorrect. He said, we've agreed upon the policy outcomes. So now we just have to find a path on the revenue side. I said that was totally untrue. You had not agreed on the policy items. The programs were still a battleground over the weekend, and that was totally untrue. It was untrue, we now know. So Pelosi said going into the weekend that 90% of everything is agreed to and written. Let me explain that quote and give you an update about the quote. I really think what she meant was the program's 90% agreed upon and 95 or 98% written. Why? Because the programs are already written. They were written in the subcommittee several weeks ago. So what's not written? Any changes to this back end for revenue, for changing corporate taxes to closing corporate tax loophole, that might be the part that's not written. But, paid leave, all these provisions have already been written. So are they still 90%? I think they're more like 95% at the moment. I'm going to read this quote as often as you and I can repeat it because it's very important as we go in this week. Steny Hoyer and Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, all said this quote last week, but here's the Steny Hoyer version of the quote, which is Steny Hoyer is hoping to bring both Biden bills, roads and bridges and the recon, to the floor this week if they are ready. Why am I reading that quote again? Because I expect not Joe Manchin, because he doesn't want to call a recon for a vote if it's not ready, or roads and bridges for a vote if the recon's not ready. I expect Gothenheimer, who just sort of doesn't listen to anyone. Did I say that out loud? Yeah, he just doesn't listen to anyone. The president already said last time, you're not having a vote on the roads and bridges if you have not agreed upon the recon. I have a feeling that Gothenheimer, who's not part of the negotiations of the recon, is just going to say, you sort of agreed to the recon already, so let's just call a vote on the roads and bridges and pass the bill. And guess who doesn't want to do that? Joe Manchin. Guess who doesn't want to do that? The progressives. So I haven't seen Gothenheimer say it yet, but I just feel it coming on. I really feel it coming on that they're going to say, yes, sort of have the recon sort of maybe kind of done. So pass our roads and bridges, make it law. And guess who's not going to do that? Progressives and also Joe Manchin. And I would hope the president comes in and says, whoever does that, you didn't listen to me, because he said, don't do that to me. I love this quote from Stephanie Murray, who is a Florida representative. Her quote is the following: there's significant focus on Senate members, House members, but other people have other perspectives on the bill, like herself. I would think it'd be very wise to engage with me and see why. We need to make sure that everyone has concerns heard that are part of the negotiations, What's at issue here is that you have 4 people negotiating the recon. That's it. There's a lot of other legislators who are involved. You have Nancy, Chuck, the president, and Joe Manchin. You sporadically have Kristen Sinema, sporadically have Bernie Sanders. But guess what? There's a lot of other legislators. And no matter how many times Nancy Pelosi says, you're part of my caucus, or Chuck Schumer says, you're part of my caucus, they're separate, independent, free-thinking elder people that say, no, you're not going to speak on my behalf. I want to make changes, and I'm going to introduce the changes. And that's why I like her quote. It's big for that MSC. It's big in the context of Ron Wyden, who introduced his own proposal to change the recon yesterday. It's important to understand that this is no news. This is nothing new. We've seen this in 2020. Remember when we had 2 negotiators, just 2, Nancy Pelosi and Steve Mnuchin. Steve Mnuchin for the Republicans. Guess what the Republicans said about Steve Mnuchin? You don't represent us. You haven't even asked us. Steve Mnuchin would never ask the Republicans what they wanted during the negotiations. Mitch McConnell said, who's he to negotiate for me? He hasn't even asked me what I'm going to do. I'm going to vote against it. So it's important to understand. Same thing with the Democrats. And there was that very, very funny quote from fall 2020 where one Democratic House member said, why do you keep on asking the Senate Democrats what they want? What are our House Democrats like me? Chop liver? He actually said that. No, he didn't say chop liver. He said cheap date. That's actually worse. He said, making me feel like I'm a cheap date. No, you just said it yourself. Needless to say, I don't remember who said that. Maybe I should Google it. Maybe you should Google it. It's the same situation right now. So let's look over where we are on other programs and where they are right now. We know that the salt is out. Good, because high sodium, not good for you. But first, let me look at the price tag. 1.7, 1.9, 2 trillion. What does it mean for us? Let's go over the details. It's huge because now we're seeing that programs at 250 or more in trouble or being reduced. So 1.7 to 2 trillion, it's a $300 billion separation. This is big. That's a difference of 2 programs. So every dollar really does count when you're looking at this recon. The president's still staying about 2 trillion. So what provisions else do we know right now? Let me go over some of the other items that are very important. Tuition-free community college definitely coming in at 0 to 2 years, but the SALT is out. The push to lift the cap on state and local tax deduction is out. The Obama subsidies in, and the way you deal with the dental, vision, and hearing is still a very complicated situation because dental takes several years to implement. $800 may not be enough as a voucher. And then the real confusing issue, if it takes several years to implement, why are we taking a financial hit on it right now? Very, very fascinating across the board. What is my position about the situation? There are really 2 things that I really don't like. I don't like Sinema staying quiet. It's a big problem. If you don't know what she doesn't like, then how do you say, yeah, I got a deal, when you don't ask her, or you ask her and she doesn't tell you? Joe Manchin, no longer a problem. He's been great. He's absolutely been great. The other problem I'm having is the president leaving town. I don't have a problem with the president. I have a problem with the president leaving town. Why? The reason why the recon is moving along so fast the last 7 days was because the president said, remove it, reduce it, out of his mouth. The reason why the recon didn't move for several months was because of stubborn White House administration officials on climate and education who simply would not remove for provisions. And they kept on telling the president, got to keep it in there, got to keep it in there, got to keep it in there. Finally, the president said, take it out. Clean energy. The president said, you have to take it out, otherwise we're not getting Joe Manchin to approve the recon. They took it out, progress got moving along. The official who wanted to do 5 years of childcare programs that would be $550 billion would be a quarter of the recon. The president said, you can't take up a quarter of my recon. I have nothing left for the American people, nothing else going out. Take it out. That stubbornness is only blocked or solved by the president saying face-to-face, take it out. I don't like the president going out of town saying, I'm going to leave it with the negotiators of the White House administration or himself on the plane. I don't like it. I'd rather have him in town. Let's go to the next 2 items, which are very interesting, which is student loan debt forgiveness. The president has offered $10,000 student loan debt forgiveness. The Democrats should take it. They don't have to foreclose themselves against taking more later on, but they should take the $10,000. This is after the president has offered and has given 3 other rounds of student loan debt forgiveness. First, the president forgave student loan debts for individuals who became disabled after graduation. Your debts have been forgiven. Then, the president forgave student loan debts for individuals who went to work in the nonprofit sector for 10 years after graduation. Your debts have been forgiven. And finally, the president forgave student loan debts for individuals who went into the public sector 10 years after graduation. City, county, state, health officials, yes. And federal officials, yes, your student loan debts have been forgiven. COLA, very exciting. Your benefits are going up 5 to 6% next year, but get ready because fifth stimulus is right behind it. An incredible statement coming from a top legislator who says, get ready to do fifth stimulus because that fifth stimulus is great news for us. Why? Because there'll be 2 other raises right behind it. It's House Budget Chairman John Yarmuth, Democrat in Kentucky, who says, force the Republicans to vote against it. Force the Republicans to vote against it by recon, like Medicare expansion, child care, senior care. I don't see the downsides. It's election year. He'll be trying to do things really popular. What is he looking at? Putting these benefit reforms in there, then doing it by recon, approving it, having the Republicans vote against it, and then going in the midterm election saying, look, I gave you all this money. Republicans wouldn't give you anything. What is this? First, it's going to raise your benefits up if you're on SSI, SSDI, Social Security, railroad benefits, veterans benefits. That's a second lift up after COLA. Then it's going to apply a new benchmark next September. The new benchmark, inflation, replacing COLA. Inflation will be 1 to 3%. Janet Yellen confirmed over broadcast media this last weekend. That's huge because COLA may be 0 next year. Let's go over the analysis. First, your benefits are going to go up one time. Then they're going to apply that new lift up under fifth stimulus if it becomes law. Then you'll have the new benchmark thereafter later this year. Next year. 3 lift ups in 24 hours. Not 24 hours, 1 year. 12 months. Yeah, that would be very nice, 24 hours. 3 lifts in 12 months. Incredible. Then they're going to move the asset cap or remove the marriage penalty, and love is going to win. Finally, if you haven't become a member, what are you doing? The newsletter is underneath. The link to become a member is underneath the video. Become a Purple Hawk, Purple Power Casino VIP today and learn about all the big money under first, second, and third stimulus. No time to cover third stimulus today, yesterday, the last few days, because there's so much happening with fourth stimulus. But understand, there is money for rent. There's money for utilities. There's money for mortgage assistance. There is the nonprofits, United Way, Salvation Army, Community Action, Catholic Charities, St. Vincent de Paul. They're all featured in the newsletter that comes out Monday through Friday, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time from this channel. Click the link under this video to become a member and get that newsletter delivered to you Monday through Friday, 7 p.m. via the YouTube alert system and the LALATE alert system, and learn about all the big money across the board you can get. And with that, it's going to be a big day. We're going to see how close they get in these programs. We got this health and dental and vision battleground has to be fixed. This Medicare expansion has to be fixed. They agreeing upon it, but they got to write it in a way that people look at and say, yeah, that's fine. And then the question of whether the Gothenheimers of the world are going to come out of the woodworks and say, call the vote on the roads and bridges. Oh, you better not. We'll be watching what happens today. It's a very fascinating day. As the president leaves town, let's see what happens next. But coming up next is Overnight's Cryptocurrency playing on this channel and morning's countdown at 7 a.m. Then I'm back with you at 9 a.m. So with that, subscribe. 400,000 subscribers, a YouTube record. I want you part of this incredible family. Hit that subscribe button right now. Like the video, 2,000-3,000 likes, and consider becoming a member. Because the toast was toasted, the butter was buttering, and the coffee was brewing. Join me next as Overnight's Crypto continues.